And an update now quickly to the story before I get to these gentlemen. The the Wall Street Journal is reporting that the president reportedly has been preparing to open a direct dialogue with Tehran. We'll see what happens as the hour progresses, but that is the latest information that we're getting now. So an update to what Senator Lindsey Graham was just saying. Now let's put up the gentlemen one more time with their handsome faces. There they are. The Fox News political insiders are here, and you can join in on the conversation on Twitter at Harris Faulkner, at FN Insiders, hashtag FRW for Fox Report Weekend, baby. John LeBoutillier, former Republican congressman for New York. Pat Caddell in the center, a former pollster and president for Jimmy Carter and Fox News contributor. Doug Schoen, former pollster for President Bill Clinton and Fox News contributor as well. Gentlemen, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Pat, I'm going to go to you first, because you were with President Jimmy Carter as the negotiations were opening up to try to free our hostages that Iran had taken. Now we're talking about a situation where the president may open dialogue, as reported by the Wall Street Journal, with Tehran. Talk to me.
Well, you know, I don't know why he doesn't just call Putin. You know, I mean, this is you know, I mean, Putin is the one who runs the world anyway, and he might actually be able to do something. We're going to call the people we're negotiating on nuclear weapons who are violating those and who've already invaded Iraq to help us, because essentially what we have here is 1975 occurring right before our eyes. This is the collapse of Vietnam. The president, and by the way, I want to say, Harris, I blame the neocons on the right for their whole thing about let's go to war everywhere, including a place that was irrelevant to the attack on 9/11. And I blame Obama and his administration for the surrender politics that they have engaged around the world, including here. And the question is, my gosh, isn't there a better way to take care of American interests and not throw away American lives and thousands of lives and trillions in treasure?
So, John, Senator Lindsey Graham was calling for what we now know, according to the Wall Street Journal, could be in the works with the president talking directly with Iran. You heard Pat there. Your take?
Well, by the way, Lindsey Graham is one of the people that Pat just referred to, the neocons who never saw a country they didn't want to invade and bomb for no reason, you know. And I think we've sat here the last 3 weeks with you, Harris. We did the VA scandal 3 weeks ago, Bergdahl the last couple weeks, and now the collapse of Iraq. And what unifies all three of them is the U.S. government lying to the American people. We lied about why we went into Iraq. We lied to the veterans about how we're going to take care of them. We lied about why the Bergdahl deal was done and why we didn't notify Congress. No wonder the country thinks we're out of control. This thing is spiraling out of control. No one's in charge of the country anymore, and the public is discouraged.
You know, as I hear you two gentlemen talk, I wonder if there isn't a place for a libertarian-type view like a Senator Rand Paul. Doug?
Well, I think Harris very definitely is, and he's going to be a very strong contender for the Republican nomination for president. But that being said, what is missing in all of this, particularly now in Iraq, is leadership. Where is the President of the United States to say what we will and will not tolerate? All well and good if we want to talk to the Iranians to try to help the process, but we need a strategy, and that strategy has to involve saving the democracy, or what's left of it, in Iraq, and saving the Iraqi government and people. And unless it's military assistance or drone strikes or some combination of aid, we will look pitiful and helpless, and it will redound to our detriment around the world.
You know, there has been a lot of talk this week or last week, and as we enter a new week, the memory is still fresh in our minds from President Obama on Friday talking about where we are with this crisis and moving ahead. But I remember back in 2011, he pretty much forecast that this wouldn't be happening. Let's take a look at what he said then and what he said on Friday, can we?
We're leaving behind a sovereign, stable, and self-reliant Iraq with a representative government that was elected by its people. Any action that we may take to provide assistance to Iraqi security forces has to be joined by a serious and sincere effort by Iraq's leaders to set aside sectarian differences. We can't do it for them. And in the absence of this type of political effort, short-term military action, including any assistance we might provide, won't succeed.
That's a case of that was then and this is now, John.
All right, but we are supposed to be the political insiders, right? So we have midterm elections in 5 months here in the United States. Does this impact it? And I think the way it does is, A, the American people, I will bet you 70% in polling will say, let's not get involved militarily anymore in Iraq. And B, because it's all going to hell in a handbasket, it's going to help the Republicans because they're the out party. The passion is on the right, and the feeling that Obama is just a failed president is sort of a growing feeling in the country. It will help the Republicans this fall.
Yeah.
Pat?
Yeah, I think, you look at the president's numbers, as Doug said, John just pointed out, the president's numbers on being trustworthy in Gallup passed the majority of people saying he's not trustworthy as president. All the polls are showing his personal characteristics at their lowest level. I think between the VA, Bergdahl, and now this, I think that we could be at the tipping point where there's no return for the president, and actually for his could be for his party this November. But I have to tell you, the leadership vacuum, the shock of seeing that comment. I listened to Tom Donilon, the author of the true author of the Benghazi Talking Points, former National Security Advisor and political hack par excellence, on TV this morning, and he was saying, oh, it was the status of forces agreement. We couldn't get one. They abandoned Iraq. They abandoned getting a better deal, forcing the government. And now, by the way, when we're at what I call the helicopter moment, when soon we will have helicopters taking American personnel out of Baghdad, trying desperately to, while people are being murdered everywhere. It's kind of a mixture between the Khmer Rouge and the North Vietnamese taking over Saigon. This is going to be an unmitigated disaster. And the establishment of this super Islamic radical state that even Al-Qaeda thinks has gone too far is a disaster for American interest and for the whole world.
Hey, Doug, before we go to break, I want to press in with you. Secretary of State John Kerry, according to our sources at the State Department, is said to have made calls to the Jordan foreign minister, the Saudi foreign minister, the Qatari foreign minister. He's making the phone calls on this. What goes on inside the White House in something like this? And I realize the president is not inside the Beltway today.
Right. My sense is what you have, as Pat and John have alluded to, is frankly panic. And the only way you can do what the president spoke of Friday, which is to reconcile the Sunni and the Shiite politicians, is if you offer leadership. And to date, we do not have a strategy for dealing with the Iraqi crisis. We have running ISIS, a guy who was in detention, was released, and on leaving detention, he said, see you in New York. Yep. So, Harris, the rest of the world sees this. They panic because there is no leadership. And to your question, there is no real answer to what John Kerry is saying because we're not offering it. We're not offering leadership.
And our political insiders are back. Can we pop up their picture again? John LeBoutillier here on set with me in New York. Pat Caddell and Doug Schoen joining us on this Father's Day. Gentlemen, happy one to you both.
Thank you.
Pat, smile, Pat.
I know. That is Pat's smile.
Okay.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about Hillary Clinton and where she is. She's been on this book tour for a while. Okay. I'm going to go to you first, Doug, because you know the Clintons. You worked with them and you're friends with them. How is life in their camp right now?
Well, from what I can tell, Harris, it is a tough period because I think most fair-minded observers would say the rollout of the book has not gone the way Hillary Clinton would want it to go. She doesn't really have a message at this point other than her book. She's getting tripped up over some tough questions about her position on gay marriage, her finances, her daughter's finances. This is not what she wants. She needs to come together with political advisors, determine where she wants the country to go. And even though she's not an announced candidate, speak to broad themes and goals about how you change this country. Otherwise, the rollout of the book will be ultimately a detriment rather than a positive for her future plans.
Let's put up the favorability or unfavorability, we should say, because that's the number that's ticking up right now with Hillary Clinton. You know, I thought that the goal was, because now it's up above 40%, I thought the goal was, John, that, you know, PR people, your public relations people, you roll out a book, it's supposed to pump up your favorability because you're everywhere.
Okay, well, first of all, those numbers went in that direction before the book came out. This poll was taken a week and a half ago.
That's
the book
true.
came out a week ago today. Doug just described the rough first week. This should be the easiest week for Mrs. Clinton because she picked and negotiated with each network who was going to interview her. And as the three of us have noticed, every interview, Harris, didn't include you, by the way, only women doing the interviews at ABC, CBS, NBC.
Well, that's going to change on Tuesday night because she's going to sit down with Brett Baer.
And Greta
Greta Van Susteren, right.
But anyway, the point is she had powder puff questions, and she couldn't even handle them from interviewers who are not out to hurt her. And she had a bad week. And
yeah. You know, oversaturation is a word that's popping up real quickly. Pat, what's your thought on that?
Well, I think it's very serious, but I've got to put a point, because it goes to her problem, too, on what we were just talking about when Doug said about when we were talking about Iraq. You know, the president tonight, in terms of leadership, is on the golf course, went to California for fundraisers. I can promise you that at least the president I work for, if we were having this, he would be in the White House, this kind of crisis, he would be in the White House dealing with it, and I suspect most presidents. And yet Hillary Clinton is now tied to him. Her overexposure here, she gets a full hour on ABC. First of all, let me just get clear. The national press has made it clear that they are for her. The networks have declared for her. She got an hour at 9 o'clock prime time and screwed that up on ABC. NBC has hired her daughter, Chelsea, for $600,000 a year, or someone calculated $23,000 a minute to appear on the air, which is more than most correspondents, most people, and it's certainly, I'm sure she's a sweet girl. It could hardly be said based on her experience. Everyone is buying her up. Her overexposure, let me just finish, her overexposure here, and the fact that she has no message, strikes me it's really inevitability.
Right back. Let's talk the midterms later this year, because they're just a few months away now. Fox News political insiders are back with final thoughts. John, Pat, and Doug. Eric Cantor, House Majority Leader, he's going to be gone in July. He's announced that he is leaving after losing that primary. I heard some criticism that he may have lost over his immigration stance. Yeah. But he says that's not the reason. What was the reason?
I think it's part of it. I think it's a bigger thing. I think there's a real disgust among the Republican base towards the Republican leadership up on the Hill. You find me one Republican voter who likes Speaker Boehner. Nobody likes him. Cantor's his deputy, in effect. I don't think they liked him. And back in his own district, I think he was arrogant and he treated local Republicans with sort of disdain. And I've never seen it where they would rise up against a member of the leadership in his own party, 56-44. It's an earthquake what happened.
Doug, does it matter that he lost?
Oh,
well,
absolutely.
It matters to him, but I mean in politics in general.
It matters to the country because it shows that the Republican Party is totally divided as we go forward into an election that they almost certainly will win. This gives the Democrats an advantage and an opportunity to use the division in the Republican Party and the supposed takeover of the Tea Party to try to hold down the size of the Republican victory, and it further emphasizes the lack of a coherent Republican message.
Well, and that's what Democrats would say, John, right? But is there a positive way to look at this? Pat?
Yeah, let me just say, I have a slightly different view. This was truly, it was an earthquake, as John said. This was House of Cards meets Mr. Smith goes to Washington. I have watched the political community of D.C. and media fumbling around for all week trying to answer this, that it was just immigration, which was an issue, that it was Laura Ingram's radio show or radio call people, or people are crazy. Well, let me tell you what it is. You had a perfect storm come together. You had a man who is the representative of a leadership the American people, including Republican voters, detest and feel have failed. He has been part of the entire let's not rock the boat, give Obama his budget, give him his deficit, screwing around with the immigration stuff, and spends all of his time. And remember what Bart campaigned against? Wall Street, campaigned against crony capitalism, all of which Cantor represented, and Cantor sat there.
All right. Gentlemen, I want to get Johnny Sage on Twitter to us, who said, Does Cantor loss show that alternate candidates can win when the media is not hyping the incumbent? An excellent question from one of our viewers tonight.
I think it's a very good point from Johnny Sage, who's one of our loyal viewers, by the way, and a sage man. And I think
there you go.
The media is biased, and when they're neutral, outsiders have a chance.
You can continue the conversation with the political insiders on Twitter at FN Insiders. Gentlemen, always good to have you here.
Thank you, Harris.
Thank you for being here. That's it for Fox Report on Sunday, June 15, 2014. Happy Father's Day to all of you. See you tomorrow.